Thank you, Tim, David, Jessica, Angie, Sue, who's just gone out. A great expression of teamwork this morning. All working together, all the thought and prep you've put into leading the service today and participating. It's really appreciated. We are in the penultimate week of a 6-week service, sermon series looking at this book by John Mark Comer, Practicing the Way. Based around discipleship as 3 ideas. The first priority being to be with Jesus. Then out of that, to become like him. And then finally, as we become like him, to do as he did. And as I said last time I preached, I think the thing that I really like about Comer's framing is he talks about Christianity as a process of transformation rather than just a transaction. This is about how we are transformed into Christ-likeness in order to live for him in the world. Hussein Abdi Kahin was born in Somaliland in 1983. His father was killed in the Somalian civil war. At the age of 9, he was taken by a woman he did not know, given a false passport, and trafficked to the UK. Upon arriving in the UK, he lived with another family where he was tasked with cooking and cleaning and looking after the woman's children. Hussein said, "Often I would just lock myself in the bathroom and cry." He wasn't initially allowed to attend school. At age 12, he went to Feltham Community College, where he was described as unkempt and uncared for with poor English. But it was his PE teacher, Alan Watkinson, who noticed an extraordinary talent in Hussein. He was an exceptional runner. So eventually, coaching Hussein, Alan drew alongside him, and he would confide in his home situation. Alan involved social services, and Hussein was taken from the family that he was staying with to another Somalian family, where he lived for the next 7 years. He says this, "From that moment, everything got better. I felt like a lot of stuff was lifted off my shoulders. It felt like me." It was in his 20s when he was a good but not consistently great runner, consistently finishing 6th or 7th in major championships, that he made the decision to move him and his family to Portland, Oregon, to train under the coach Alberto Salazar. Under Salazar's instruction, he started a training regime of 120 miles a week. Gradually improved. His training philosophy is this: champions are made in the moments when no one is watching. But it was on August the 4th in 2012 when Mo Farah, in front of 80,000 fans at the Olympic Stadium, became the first Brit to win the 10,000-metre gold medal. 1 week later, he would win the 5,000-metre as well, becoming only a handful of people ever to have done the double. When he won the 5,000 metres, the cheering in the stadium was so loud that the vibrations blurred the finish line camera. Do you not know that in a race, all runners compete, but one only receives the prize? Well, not if you're a millennial, because we all win these days, don't we? Run in such a way that you may win it. Athletes exercise self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath. That wreath of ivy, if you think of that, that's the perishable wreath Paul is talking about. But we, an imperishable, eternal one. So do not run aimlessly or box as though beating the air. I punish my body and enslave it so that after proclaiming it to others, I myself should not be disqualified. Who thinks Paul's a little bit alpha? Corinth was home to the Isthmian Games. In ancient Greece, there were 4 major tournaments. We know of the Olympics, but there were 3 others that happened through the year. One was the Isthmian Games, which happened just outside Corinth, dedicated to the god Poseidon. And Isthmus is a strip of land between 2 seas. And this is what it looks like today. This is the city of Isthmus, just outside Corinth. Paul's writing is littered with sporting references because his community would have known them and understood them. In Acts 20, we get this: "But I do not count my life of any value to myself, if only I may finish the race." In Galatians 5, "You were running well. What prevented you from obeying the truth?" From Hebrews 12, "Let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us." And from 1 Timothy 6:2, "Fight the good fight of faith, a boxing match, not a bloodbath." Paul's point is this: that following Jesus is like being an athlete. In our reading today, verse 12 said this: "Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training." A few weeks ago, I said that actually this is about training hard. It is not about trying hard. And John Comer draws that distinction from a famous quote by Dallas Willard, the American Christian and philosopher, where he says that grace is opposed to earning, but not to effort. So we do not earn our salvation. Our salvation is a free gift because of what Christ has done on the cross for us. But that doesn't mean we don't have a part to play. The Christian faith is a disciplined life, and it takes effort to follow Christ diligently. Somebody said to me after that sermon, "Isn't that just semantics?" What is the difference between training hard and trying hard? Well, let me try to pass it out. Imagine this. Tomorrow morning, you wake up determined to try to be more Jesus-y. This is the task for today. So you get out of bed, you get dressed, you hit the M25, and you're straight into the roadworks. There it is, a row of cones. Tail back is slow, and there is no one working. I mean, why is it that there's always roadworks and there's no one ever working on them? Anyway, today you're being Jesus-y, so it's all cool. So you get to the office and you open your emails and you're starting to look through, and the presentation that you'd requested for the meeting at 10 o'clock isn't there. Why? They've had 4 months' notice. Why isn't it there? So you quickly and hurriedly pull the presentation together yourself. I mean, why I didn't do it myself the first time, I have no idea. And you get to the meeting room, and the client you're meeting is 10 minutes late. Turns out they're stuck in traffic. And 10 minutes into the meeting, you get the phone call saying, "Actually, do you mind if we adjourn this to next week because we're not going to make it?" It's okay, today I'm being Jesus-y. It's all good. Back to the desk. You sit down at your desk. The person that you're mentoring in the office comes up to you and asks you the same simple thing for the 3rd time. How did trying to be all Jesus-y go? Let's rewind and replay that day. You get up half an hour before you needed to, perhaps when there's a little bit of quiet in the house. And you find somewhere quiet to sit down by the window with a good cup of coffee. And you open the Bible and you find a proverb. And you read it. And you spend a few minutes just sitting in quiet, mulling it over. Perhaps gazing out the window. And then you think about the things that are on the docket for the day, the meeting you've got to have, getting there. And you just hand that over to God and you say, "God, help me today. Help me to reflect you in what I am doing. And you get into the same traffic jam. But you're thinking, okay, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to have a little bit of time to myself. To listen to that podcast that you wanted to. You arrive at waiting for the same meeting, and they're 5-10 minutes late, but it's, okay, I'm going to just take a moment and breathe and look out the window. Now, okay, there are two artificial scenarios. The one doesn't automatically lead to the other, but you can see the idea that actually after a while of training yourself in stillness and patience and in the presence of God, that actually over time you may find yourself changing to be more like that person you want to be more Jesus-y, as a result of that half an hour's training every morning instead of simply trying harder. Of course, what we're talking about are the spiritual disciplines, or if you perhaps prefer modern language, habits or practices. And as I said the other day, they're habits and practices of both the head and the heart. John Mark describes them as this: the spiritual disciplines are practices based on the lifestyle of Jesus that create time and space for us to access the power and presence of the Holy Spirit, and in doing so be transformed from the inside out. There is no definitive list of the spiritual disciplines. They are practices derived from the life of Jesus, trying to live like him and follow him. So most of the things he do could fit in. Here are a few: practicing silence and solitude, prayer, meditation and fasting, reading the Bible and study, Sunday worship, serving, justice, simple living, gratitude, walking in nature. It's mimicking it. It is living and following, living after Jesus. Looking at the practices that he embedded into his life and thinking which ones will enable and empower me to be more like him. And I think you can think of the spiritual disciplines, this is John Mark's work obviously, but I'm making it sound like it's mine, because it makes me sound clever. He suggests that you should put them on a 2x2 grid. On the one side, there are practices that you do alone or in community. Along the bottom are practices of abstinence, things we cut out, and practices of engagement, things that we do. And you can plot them on a 2x2. And often when we think of the spiritual disciplines, we tend to be drawn towards this first quadrant. Those are practices that we do alone and practices of abstinence. So we might think of solitude, of meditation, of solo prayer or Bible study. But actually that is only one group of the spiritual disciplines. There are things that we do alone that are about engagement in the world. So maybe this is protesting injustice. Maybe these are acts of generosity, where we give an engagement. Maybe it's walking alone in nature. There are practices that we do as a community that are of abstinence. We might think of Sabbath, refraining from work, taking a day off, having 24 hours off a mobile phone. And then finally there's this last quadrant. There are spiritual disciplines we do as a community and that are of engagement. You've come to church this morning. That is an example of a spiritual discipline in a community of engagement. You've chosen to come here, to spend your time here. I just want to finish, as I head towards the end, with 3 thoughts about living a life full of the spiritual disciplines. The first is this, that I think you would be best served, or it would be helpful to take into account your personality type. God made you that way. You are the gift to us in the way that God has made you. So in terms of thinking about living a spiritual discipline, like how are you going to live into the person that God has made you to be? For some of us, sitting on our own in a minimalist white room with a single candle cross-legged on the floor for 30 minutes as introverts is our idea of heaven. For some of you, that would be torture. For some of you, the extroverts, perhaps managing 3 minutes of silence or solitude on your own is about what you can cope with. So you might want to lean into spiritual disciplines of engagement. I don't think God calls us to ride roughshod over the people he has made us to be. Partner with us. And think about your personality. Secondly, I think spiritual disciplines should take into account your season of life. Remember, this is not about earning. This is not about sitting on the roof whipping yourself late at night. We're all in different seasons of life. Young parents, we've been a delight to have your children in the room with us this morning. Please, as David said, we love the noise of family and community. Please don't feel embarrassed. And if you need to nod off during the sermon, we all thoroughly understand. Because we've been there, haven't we, lots of us? I remember at a period we had 3 kids under 4. Those 3 years are missing. I have no idea what happened during those 3 years. They were a blur. And I'm not sure I was particularly good at practicing spiritual disciplines at that point. But now I'm in a different season of life. And I'm getting older and I'm waking up earlier. Does that happen to everybody? Yeah, all right, okay. So I've got a bit more time and energy in the mornings. Take into account your season of life. And then the last thing I want to say, which completely contradicts those first 2, so bear with me, is that spiritual discipline should take into account the need of the hour. What do I mean by that? Well, let me try to explain to you. You know, sometimes I meet people and they go, well, I don't want to do that. It doesn't feel really authentic to who I am. I'm only going to do the things that are authentic to me. What if the authentic you is the issue here? What if actually some challenge in your life might be helpful? So I think there's a question for us about balancing comfort and challenge. Do we just lean into the things that fit our personality and that we find easy? Well, there are seasons of our life when, yes, that's appropriate, and you need to do that. And we need to lean into comfort, the comfort that God offers. Still live a disciplined life, still find ways to engage in the spiritual disciplines, but lean into those areas that bring you consolation. But there are definitely other seasons in our life where we've become complacent, and we need to lean into fresh challenge. Which is it? Come on, Charlie, which is it? Are we supposed to live into comfort or challenge? Both. So many of the answers to the Christian life is, what is it? Is it this? Is it black or is it white? Is it this? Is it that? It's both. We need both in our lives. So, what might that look like? Well, if you're struggling with an addiction of some form, gambling, the poker rooms late at night, the chat rooms late at night, the pornographic websites late at night. Try a spiritual discipline of fasting. If you're dealing with an addiction, then if I was your spiritual director and you were coming to talk to me about that, I would say try to introduce fasting into your life because it's a discipline of abstinence. It trains those muscles. Go without food. Just drink black tea or coffee until the first meal of the evening and then share that meal with your family. But introduce that into your life as a practice once a month to begin with. Then go back and speak to your spiritual director about it, how it's going. If you're struggling with a sin of pride, then I recommend you do an act of generosity and don't put it on Instagram. I know, shock, horror. Don't tell anyone. Just do it. and then keep it a secret. Nothing trains your ego harder than that, because you really want to tell somebody this great thing you've just done, and you're not going to. That's going to teach you humility as a spiritual discipline. So the spiritual disciplines, ways to access the power of Christ in our lives. To train us. They're based on the life of Jesus. Look at the things that Jesus did and think, what of these practices can I introduce into my life? Think about your personality. Think about your season of life, but also think about the need of the hour. And find a spiritual director. Find somebody, a confidant, a mentor, a friend that you could talk to about this. You could say, I'm struggling in this area, help me. Come and talk to Andy or talk to me. Or be your own spiritual director. Grab a blank piece of paper and sit down and write out your thoughts, your reflections. What you think you might do to engage in active, conscious, intentional training, spiritual disciplines to shape your life. I think I said this last time and it seemed to really resonate, so I'm going to say it again. Curate your heart. If you're not intentional about it, you'll allow social media, you'll allow the TV, you'll allow the media to shape it for you. So be the curator. Curate your heart. Be intentional. Last time I preached on this, a couple of weeks ago before the baptismal service, I left you with a challenge, a thought. I don't know how many of you did it. If you didn't, don't worry. There's no guilt or shame here. But I suggested you might try a liturgical audit. Going through all the habits, the things you do habitually throughout the week. Starting with the time your alarm goes off to what you do when you get out of bed. You clean your teeth, do you put the kettle on? Do you step outside? Do you walk the dog? What are your habits? Don't judge them, just write them down. And then in the other column, what are they doing to my heart? Are they making me more like Jesus? Are they building me up? Are they hopeful? Are they helpful? Or are they destructive, actually? And that habit, it's causing me issues, and it's taking me in a direction I don't want to go. Well, my challenge for you today is, if you've done that, to take one of those negative habits, one of those destructive habits. It could simply just be staying up way too late every night, because you know it's good for you. It's not good for you. You get caught up in a Netflix series, and before you know it, it's 1 a.m. And swap it and introduce instead one of those spiritual practices derived on the life of Jesus. Just one. And start there. I'm going to replace one destructive habit with one positive spiritual discipline. And if it's meditation, you're going to try sitting quiet in the morning, centering prayer, and you find that really difficult, well, don't set yourself the task of 30 minutes. That's not realistic. Set the timer on your phone and do 2. Just do 2. And then take that as a win. And the next day, do 2 more. And then up it to 3 a week later. But let's be intentional, friends, about how we are living this Christian life and trying to follow Jesus. Because there is no transformation without repetition. There is no transformation without repetition. And a friend quoted this to me in the week, and I thought it was helpful. We overestimate what we can do in a week, but we underestimate what we can do in a year. Change isn't going to happen overnight. But it does if you commit to the practice on a regular basis. In 2009, I was 15.5 stone, couldn't run for the bus. I was playing football with my kids in the garden. We were kicking the ball around. I was exhausted. Couldn't keep up with them. I was eating the wrong food. My mental health was a mess. I wasn't the person I wanted to be, the example to my kids. I wasn't the person I wanted to be. So with the help of a good friend, I decided I would start trying to change it, and I started with a jog walk. Walked 30 minutes, walked for 2 minutes, jog for 30 seconds, repeat, walk home, win. Next day, do it again. Never a point I'd have thought I'd have ever run a marathon. But gradually, slowly, over time, over the course of about 18 months, my testimony is I managed to make the change and get to myself in a much healthier, fitter, better example to my kids place. But it didn't happen overnight. And I definitely I'd have loved results within a couple of weeks. That would have been great. But it took a long time of steady, disciplined training and gradually increasing. You'll know who this is. This is Eliud Kipchoge. He is the first guy to run a marathon in under 2 minutes. 2 minutes? 2 hours. Run it in under 2 hours. Back-to-back Olympic gold medals in Rio 2016 and 2020. He runs 120 to 135 miles a week, but 80% of that is done at very slow conversational pace. It is entirely counterintuitive and very, very difficult to do. He is the fastest man in the world over a marathon course. And 80% of his training is done jogging slowly, chatting to his companions. But he's disciplined. For 19 years, he's had exactly the same training routine. 13 times a week he runs, except on Sundays. He lives in a minimalist training camp in Kaptagat in Kenya at 2,500 meters with no distractions. He shares in the house chores, makes chapatis for his housemates. He religiously sleeps 9 hours a night, turns off his electronic devices 30 minutes before bedtime, and reads for 30 minutes a night. His training philosophy and his philosophy for life, self-discipline is doing what is right instead of doing what you feel like. He grew up in poverty, cycling 3 kilometers each day to carry empty milk gallon cartons of water back to his home. We live in an age where the internet promises us shortcuts and hacks to make everything easier. And yet here's a man who has become the greatest at his area through just consistency and discipline, and faithfully doing the same thing for 2 decades. That's not going to be you, that's not going to be me. But we can take lessons from it, can't we? Because the principles can apply to us. And I, like Paul, want to be able to say, I fought the good fight, I finished the race, and I have kept the faith.